Hey guys, welcome back to Zerotaste. Today we're going to be looking at the top 5 Spirit Ashes with passive effects in Elden Ring. Within Elden Ring, there are generally 2 types of Spirit Ashes summonable by the Spirit Calling Bell. The actual spirits of beings long since worn to ash, and puppets, which are not really even ash. I don't even really know how the puppets work. Are they folded up and just re-inflated like a blow-up mattress when you summon them? I don't know. Anyways, let's get this started with number 5. The first spirit on this list is one of the aforementioned puppets, in particular the puppet of Dolores the Sleeping Arrow. If her name hasn't given it away yet, her unique passive is her exclusive use of Saint Trina's arrows. This makes her a good option for fighting Godskin enemies or other enemies that are vulnerable to sleep. To get this Spirit Ash, you'll need to start Ronnie's questline and work with Celavis on his weird revenge fetish fantasies, and giving Nefeli Celavis' potion. This brings us to the dark implications of his character. Celavis won't sell you Dolores until you bring him some fresh meat, so to say. Dolores was actually a close friend of Gideon of the Round Table Hold, and Celavis will only give you her spirit if you bring him the lifeless body of Gideon's daughter to do, well, I'll just leave that to your imagination. Or you can just ignore Celavis to the point which Ronnie leaves and both he and Peta die, and then you can retrieve the puppet from Peta's corpse. I can trust that you'll make the right choice. At number 4, we have one of the 6 legendary Spirit Ashes in Elden Ring, and that's the spirit of Plainrot Knight Finlay. She is a bit difficult to get as she is located all the way up in the Halig tree, but just might be worth grabbing. Quickly though, who is she? Well, she is Melina's lesbian lover and scissor enthusiast. And if you believed any of that, then I have some land in Wakanda to sell you. In reality, Finlay was just a loyal knight who acted as Melina's designated driver who took her home after her fight with Radahn. So back to why she's on this list. Finlay will occasionally cast a buff that heals the player for 7 HP per second for 30 seconds, and also increases fire damage negation by 60%. So basically a souped up version of Flame Protect Me, which is pretty nice. But does it make up for the fact that overall Finlay is just an average spirit with a high FP cost of 127, whose only real utility is this buff and her ability to proc Scarlet Rot on enemies? Only you can answer that. With number 3, we're back to Celavis' toy shop for another puppet. This time though, instead of an innocent woman, we'll be taking home an unwashed sewer-dwelling degenerate, the Dung Eater. To get this puppet, you again have to start Celavis' quest like before, but do not give the potion to Nefeli, instead save it for when you find the Dung Eater. Before you can turn the Dung Eater into a puppet, you need to receive his jail key by showing him a seedbed curse, then free him from his jail, where then he'll invade you here. After you kill him, return to the Round Table Hold and talk to him again, before returning to his jail, where I'll want you to feed him more seedbed curses, but instead we'll make him drink Celavis' potion. Then, in 3 to 5 business days, you'll be able to purchase him from a confused Celavis, at the cost of 5 Starlight Shards. With a summon cost of 118 FP, he does good damage and is rather tanky, but what passive does he actually provide? Put simply, he wields the Sword of Milos, so he will occasionally use the Shriek of Milos ability, that debuffs enemies and will increase the damage that they take. Quick side note though, as his ability is currently using its PvP values instead of its PvE values. Instead of increasing damage enemies take by 15%, it's only 5%. So yeah, despite all of that, Dung Eater's passive debuff is just another reason why he's a top 5 spirit in the game. Next up is Perfumer Trisha, who owns a local smoke shop that deals exclusively in galaxy gas. You can find her in the unsightly catacombs, where she's apparently running a shitty daycare play place for all the horrid creatures of the world. After you find her in her office, you can free her from her duty and her life. And once you do, you'll realize that she's much better off with you, as she will periodically use one of her practically infinite supply of uplifting aromatics. If you don't know what uplifting aromatics do, they function like the Opaline Bubble tier and reduce the damage taken from the first hit after the effect is applied by 90%, just like the Opaline Bubble tier. But the uplifting aromatic also increases damage done by 10% until you're hit, so you'll be on cloud 9 until the come down hits you like a cinder block. Back to Trisha, and while her hands are basically non-existent, she isn't useless, as with a low FP cost of 78, she can provide great value as your personal pharmacist. Before we get to number 1, I have an honorable mention, and that is the Mimic tier, because it can pretty much do anything you can do. So if you give it the Commander Standard, then it can use Rallying Standard. I'm just mentioning this because I knew if I didn't mention it, then I'd probably get crucified in the comments. When you start Elden Ring, you'll begin at the Chapel of Anticipation, and a monstrous beast lurks there, and I'm not talking about this dickhead over here. I'm talking about Stormhawk Dean. You are unable to obtain Dean at the start of the game though, and he only becomes accessible once you return to the Chapel of Anticipation by way of the 4 belfries. If you haven't used this Spirit Ash before, then you're seriously missing out. Stormhawk Dean is a low-cost summon at only 47 FP and will periodically cast a buff similar to Rallying Standard, giving you a 20% increase to physical damage, stamina damage, and poise damage for 60 seconds. That poise damage increase is the most crazy to me. I'd never even heard of it, and it completely changes the game. Overall, this is one of the most cracked buffs in the game, and I never hear anyone talking about it. But now you know about it, so maybe go and give Stormhawk Dean a try. Well, that's all folks, the top 5 Spirit Ashes with passive effects. Let me know if you guys found this video interesting and if you'd like to see more. Other than that, it really helped me out if you left a like, as it helps in the algorithm, and maybe subscribe if you want to see more from me. Finally, I want to thank you all for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Peace.